Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, our Datev Challenge Roth edition. My name is Bob Bapp. We're brought to you by Master Spas, SFuels Go Longer, HOKA Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. In our first 30 years, we've now raised over $159 million, sent out over 44,000 grants to challenged athletes in all 50 states, 73 countries, and in 105 different sports. Our next guest, four-time Ironman World Champion, three-time Challenge Roth champion, undefeated in her amazing career, 13-0 at iron distance events, 8:18:13 is still the fastest Iron woman's time in history. Chrissie Wellington joins us. Chrissie, how you doing?
Oh, really well. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to connect, Bob.
Well, and Chrissie, when I look at 8:18:13, and that's still 7 seconds faster than Laura Philipp did at Hamburg last year, are you surprised that that still stands? This is what, 11, 12 years later, and that time is still with faster bikes, with plated shoes, that time still stands.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was so surprised that I kind of managed to achieve that. And yeah, it's an incredible surprise that that record still stands. Like you said, there's been some phenomenal technological advances across all three disciplines, but not only that, there's strength and depth in the female field. So I think it's, not if, but when the record is broken. I hope it's broken. I hope that, I've raised the bar for others and, to step forward and to aim for. And I'm sure in the next few years or even the next few weeks, that record might fall.
So when you went to Challenge Roth for the first time, 2009, what did you know about the event, and what did you learn from being there for the first time and winning that race?
I had the privilege of training and racing with some phenomenal athletes, and many of whom had raced at Challenge Roth and had just spoken so highly of it. Not simply the race itself and the level of organization and the attention to detail that the team put into the race, but the atmosphere and that community spirit that kind of imbues every single aspect of the race. And I knew when they spoke of it that it was the type of race that I wanted to be part of. I wanted to be part of an event which captured the hearts and minds of the entire community. And Roth certainly does that. And for me, Bob, when I was racing was performative. I loved to engage with the crowds. I loved the interaction. I loved the atmosphere. And so everything about Roth spoke to me, and it certainly just didn't disappoint. And from that, the first time I raced there in 2009, it's kind of addictive and you want to keep coming back.
Well, and then when you shatter the course record in 2010, you go 8:19, and people are thinking, there's no way you can go faster than that. And then the following year, you go exactly 1 minute faster than you had in 2010. I mean, did you have a sense that, oh my God, I think I might, because you put that record so far out there at 8:19, that's still the third fastest time in history. Did you feel there was an that you could break that time?
I think my limits were iterative, Bob. I wasn't entirely sure what I was capable of. I was just determined to put everything out there and just to leave everything on the course and to explore the limits. For me, racing was exploratory. I was curious about myself. I was curious about what I was capable of, and I wasn't sure where that was. And so Roth gave me that opportunity to test those limits, and yeah, I admit, surpassed what I thought was possible. I wasn't going into 2011 confident that I could break that 8:18 barrier. To me, that seemed almost insurmountable, and to do so still kind of blows my mind. Not only the physicality of it, but the psychological pressure that you're under when you not only have a target on your back as the kind of reigning champion at that race, but also you're chasing this time that maybe commentators expect you to try and break, and so there's that psychological, physical component that, you know, we all know is a factor in Ironman, but I think it was compounded at that race.
2011 is fascinating to me, because here's this race where everything is perfect. You have this great day, 8:18. Then later that same year, 2 weeks before Kona, when you're coming back after not being able to race in 2010, you're coming back 2011, you crash 2 weeks before the race, obviously not optimum heading into a race. And it was just like, it seemed like you guys just to get yourself to the starting line of that event became the challenge. Can I get to the starting line? Take us through everything that you went through that last couple of weeks leading into the race after that crash.
Yeah, I had a phenomenal lead in to that race, Bob, having raced at Challenge Roth, having had the experience that I did. It was euphoric, and it, you know, provided me with such kind of motivation to, you know, to push myself even further. And the training up until the 2 weeks before the World Championships had gone extremely well. I was coached by Dave Scott, and it was on a group ride. My back wheel went from under me, came down on tarmac on my left-hand side, had third-degree burns along my legs, and I hurt my pectoral muscle. Unfortunately, I also took out Dave Scott's son, Drew, so he's never forgiven me because I sabotaged his World Championships race as well. So not only mine, I also took him out for good measure. So I, you know, still have to make that up to him, I think. But yeah, it's challenging when you're preparing for any World Championships. You hope that your preparation will be as smooth as possible, and you anticipate bumps in the road. I don't think I ever anticipated it to be that bumpy. So for the 2 weeks preceding, you know, you have to, as an athlete, be prepared to be agile and be prepared to adapt. And we certainly had to do that. We had to modify my training, my logistics, and my travel plans, etc., etc. So, you know, have to be comfortable in having had a strategy and being prepared to adapt that strategy quite significantly. But as you said, I was determined to be on that start line, and I've proven to myself over and over again throughout my career that the body is capable of some amazing feats, and I don't want to discount it before I've even started. So I wanted to give myself the opportunity to start and to test myself and to see what I was capable of under those circumstances. But Bob, it wasn't me getting myself to the start line. It was my team. Right. I couldn't have got to the start line without all of my team around me, you know, providing me with so much support in so many different ways, and it's thanks to them, and it's a credit to them that we managed to achieve what we did, because it was certainly not something I could have done alone and have achieved independently.
What was fascinating is you've got that year, because Miranda Carfrae had won in 2010, you had won in 7, 8, 9. It was basically, here's the women's race was a showcase, because Chrissie's coming back in 2011. She didn't race in 2010. Miranda won. So it's two champions. You don't have that very often. Basically two champions going head to head. And you've never been behind like you were on that day, right? You were 101 out of the water. Rinny was 57-17. You had to fight all day long. And when I look at the other races in Kona, you won by 9 minutes in 07, 15 minutes in 08, 19, almost 20 minutes in 09. And I'm out on the course with your mom and dad, and they're like, what the heck's going on here? Why is Chrissie not leading and kissing babies along the way? I'm like, okay, she's behind. It
was certainly a different dynamic, Bob. And I think that's what made it so special.
Yes.
Because it was the race I'd always craved, that race where I could push myself to the limit, but that race with my competitors that I think I'd always wanted and always needed.
Right.
And that's not to say I was, racing like Lucy Charles and always leading from the front for the entirety of the race, but it was a very different dynamic, as you alluded to. And I think that's what made it so special. It was a battle, and I was forced to find strengths within that I never knew I had. And that's why, I often say that race completed me, because as athletes, we're looking for that race experience, I think. And maybe that's a bit nebulous and we can't really define what that is. And until we have it, I don't think we know. And I experienced that at that race. It gave me everything I could have ever wished for.
Well, and that at the finish, it's 2 minutes and 49 seconds. And the entire run, you've got the woman who's considered the best runner in the sport, basically 2 to 3 minutes back the entire time. I mean, could you look back? You'd see her a couple of different times in the energy lab, places like that. Do you try to get a sense of how they're doing? Or are you totally in your own zone, just worried about yourself at that point?
I was very insular in that race, Bob, just focusing on myself and all of the things that I could control. But I am very grateful that the marathon is 42 kilometers and not 43, because I think had she had another kilometer, things may have turned out a lot differently. But yeah, you're very conscious of the strengths of your competitors. And I was conscious of my kind of ailing body, and that's why I really had to concentrate on everything that I could control that was within. And I think for the first time I almost disengaged from that interaction with the crowds at some points as well, because Dave said to me before the race, you need to conserve all your energy. You're depleted of energy going into this race, and you expend a lot of energy, like you said, kissing babies, waving to the crowd, interacting. That's, it can be energy giving, but it can also be energy expending. And so in the final, stages of that race, I was really conscious of just conserving energy and being able to control what was within my power to control.
How, when we look at your career, we go 2007, 2011, obviously you were, trying to make the Olympic team before that, but that the sweet spot of 2007, 2011, 4 amazing years, undefeated. How hard was it to finish that race and basically drop the mic and go, okay, I'm done?
It's a great question, Bob. I think paradoxically, it was both easy and incredibly hard. It was easy because I intuitively knew that it was the right decision. And I'm a very intuitive person, an intuitive athlete. And that race completed me. I felt, like I said before, like it answered all of the questions I'd ever asked of myself. And I didn't know whether it got any better than that. And I just felt content, and I just felt complete. And as a professional athlete, that your career is finite and you need to plan at some point for what's next, and that the what's next will eventually come. So I was very conscious of that and wanting to leave having had the experience that I craved. So in that respect, it was easy because I knew instinctively it was the right decision. But it was also incredibly, incredibly difficult. I catapulted myself into a void, albeit of my own making, where I felt incredibly destabilized. So I no longer had a goal. I no longer had a structure. I no longer had that sense of validation. I no longer had the financial security.
Yeah.
And that is very unsettling. It's quite destabilizing. And I think one of the most important challenges that I had was with self-identification and validation, and not knowing who I was and my value and self-worth if I wasn't Chrissie Wellington world champion.
Right.
And that takes time. And that's a really challenging situation for any athlete to navigate when they've their public persona, their financial security, their life course has been shaped around this one single thing. And then trying to navigate a path outside of that can be really hard. And again, I lent into my support network. I tried to be comfortable with that void, and I tried to explore opportunities to connect all my different passions and all the different threads in my life, including triathlon. But for me, Bob, and for my own progression and I guess mental health, I needed to step away slightly from triathlon because I didn't know whether it would be healthy for me to have 2 feet in that sport, but yet expect myself to define myself as something more. Does that make sense?
It does. And I remember one of our early conversations after, it might have been after you won your first Ironman. We were standing at the award ceremony, and you were saying that I feel what just happened gave me a platform to talk to young girls about pursuing their dreams and understanding that you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish. And that to me was I had never heard that before from someone who had just won their first Ironman, who really had done Ironman Korea and qualified, and we had no idea who you were winning that first Ironman. But you had a vision for yourself seemed to me from the very beginning that you knew that this event had changed you and given you a platform to do something greater than sport.
Yeah, I mean, what is the value of sport if not a vehicle to achieve something absolutely amazing that goes beyond you and your own performance? Because seen through one lens, it is incredibly selfish and self-indulgent, because it's about you setting a goal and striving to achieve it with the support of a team around you. But it can be a vehicle to so much more. Yes. And that's just not the preserve of professional athletes. I think everyone in sport can influence and inspire those around them by virtue of the way in which they live their lives, the way in which they work hard and strive towards their goals. And sport is that channel and that vehicle for driving really positive change. And I still believe that, to this day. And triathlon did give me that opportunity and that platform and that voice. And I've tried to utilize that in the best way possible. And I still feel so grateful for having been given that opportunity.
Yeah. And well, so from sport, a global lead for health and well-being for Park Run, to children's books, MBE, OBE, look at everything you've accomplished since sport. You were able to make use of this amazing sport that we both love and use it for greatness and to help get women into their own Tour de France. There's so many great things that you've accomplished since. And so how important is sport in your life now? Is it something you go out and run a little bit, ride a little bit with your little one? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so, when I think about life, I think of it in the most basic terms, like a pie chart, right? With different segments. You've got education, you've got family, you've got your hobbies, you've got your paid work, you may have voluntary work. And as a professional athlete, the entirety of the pie chart is your career. Yes. And that's sport. So you have to compromise and make choices about all of the other segments, right? Now, I have the opportunity to equalize them a little more. So I have my career with Parkrun, and I work 3 days a week for them. I do some corporate public speaking, which I still really enjoy. I do some voluntary work. I'm a local volunteer ranger here in Somerset, where we live. I also read with the children at Esme's school. Obviously, I've got my family, which, you know, is the utmost priority to me. And then I have my sport, and my sport will not be as all-encompassing as it used to be, and nor should it be, and nor do I want it to be, but it will always be important. But I needed a new challenge, and I needed to transition away from triathlon, having achieved you know,
everything. Yeah.
My peak performance in that sport. And so I kind of segued into trail running, ultra running, which for me is exploratory. It's an incredible challenge. I wouldn't say I was particularly talented at the downhills, but I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. So that's, I guess, my sporting focus at the moment. But life is a lot more balanced than it was as an athlete, and it's gratifying and satisfying, but in a different way. You can never recapture, you know, if I think and try and bottle that emotion that I felt when I crossed the finish line at Challenge Roth in 2011, or the World Championships that same year, you can't replicate that, Bob.
No,
it's a once in a lifetime. I mean, it was utterly phenomenal and life-changing. But life changes, and you have to, you know, derive satisfaction and joy and elation from lots of different things. And so I try, you know, I try to do that. So there are many things in my life that give me great pleasure. But, you know, when I look back at my time as an athlete, it's with nothing but fondness as well.
Well, when I look back at the different ways that we connected with, when you ran as Elvis with us, right, at Rock and Roll Half Marathon, people were like, "Is that Chrissie Wellington in the Elvis outfit?" And then
even worked, did it?
It was so fun. And then Mini Muddy Buddy in Boulder, you're in the frog outfit with the kids, and then coming out to our Challenge Athlete Foundation
event,
doing the voiceover for Haven Shepherd. Haven is a Paralympian and is doing modeling and has sponsorships. It's wonderful. So, you know, you were at our endurance awards. We did a Tri Club of San Diego Q&A. Actually, right after you won, came to San Diego, and I still remember you walked into the room, and it was 350 people in the room, and you had no idea. It's like, wait, what?
I really to see you, Bob.
No, they were there to see the legend who had just won the Ironman. And I tell people all the time, here's this woman who won 13 in a row. She dominated. But when you think that, you know, there were times that were a little different. Chrissie did the London Triathlon and borrowed a wetsuit. And this was a woman who became the best in the world. And you can take it from there. But basically, you jumped in the water and had to get rescued.
Yeah, that was my first experience. It wasn't really auspicious beginnings, was it, in the sport of triathlon? But I think it speaks more to curiosity and a desire to explore. And I think if we all have that, we can unearth talents we never knew we had. And I was grateful to be presented with the opportunity to try triathlon, and I'm the type of person that seizes that with both hands. So I think having a curiosity about yourself and a desire to explore opportunities and possibilities can lead you down paths you never might have imagined. So I'm so grateful I took that chance and tried something that I really didn't think I would be that good at.
And your goal was to be an Olympian. And when Brett Sutton says, I think longer distance is really better for you, I'm sure at the beginning you were like, does that make sense? But at some point you embraced that, and that a career was born.
But that speaks to failure, doesn't it, Bob? You know, that you speak of me as a winning athlete, but I failed at becoming an Olympian. But failing at something doesn't mean you're a failure. So you pivot. I failed at becoming an Olympian. I didn't achieve my goal. But because of that, I pivoted, encouraged by, you know, my coach, etc. Pivoted and found something that suited my, you know, suited my strength much better. So, you know, I think we all encounter adversity and we all encounter failure in our lives, but it's how we deal with it, how we use it, and, you know, how it kind of catapults us down a different path where we might achieve something different.
I always say that sometimes people see something in you that you don't see yourself. And I think we all need those people. The Brett Sutton who saw that in you, the Dave Scott who gave you for 2011 basically said, okay, don't share any energy here because you don't have a lot to spare here. We all need those people to invest in us. Sometimes we don't know what the future holds, and other people see it before we do.
Absolutely. And then there's also that strength and vulnerability and leaning into people and asking people for help. And, you know, as an athlete, I found that incredibly difficult. But I realized very quickly that my kind of independence and my ability to be self-sufficient was only possible because I had this safety net of some amazing people around me. So here was I thinking, oh, you're self-sufficient and you're so independent. But I wasn't really. I was interdependent and reliant on all these amazing people. And by leaning into all of these amazing people, I was able to achieve some really phenomenal things. But being vulnerable and actually doing that was quite hard for me initially.
I love it. Chrissie, is always such a treat to get to chat with you. We haven't seen each other in person in a while. Next week, Challenge Roth. That's going to be a blast.
Phenomenal. I am beyond excited about coming back. They might even persuade me to wear lederhosen. I don't mind. I will be there with bells on, and we'll be on that finish line, handing out medals, enjoying the atmosphere, encouraging people, and then just embracing that phenomenal event.
Chrissie Wellington has been our guest again. Breakfast with Bob, our DATEV Challenge Roth edition. Chrissie, as always, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Your smile just lights up the world, and I love it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Bob.
A pleasure. Chrissie Wellington again has been our guest. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. See ya.